Nammo Phat. Good morning. Thank you for joining me for our daily practice check-in. Listen, listen, listen. This beautiful sound calls us back to our true home. The fourth mindfulness training. Aware of the suffering caused by unmindful speech and the inability to listen to others, I vow to cultivate loving speech and deep listening in order to bring joy and happiness to others and to relieve others of their suffering. Knowing that words can create happiness or suffering, I'm determined to speak truthfully with words that inspire self-confidence, joy, and hope. I will not spread news that I do not know to be certain, and will not criticize or condemn things of which I am not sure. I will refrain from uttering words that can cause division or discord, or that can cause the family or the community to break. I am determined to make all efforts to reconcile and resolve all conflicts, however small. This morning we're finishing Ajahn Thanissharo's essay, The Weight of Mountains, from The Karma of Questions. When we see stress as a characteristic common to all the things we latch onto, it helps dispel their allure. Pleasures begin to ring hollow and false. Even our sufferings, which we can often glamorize with a perverse pride, begin to seem banal when reduced to their common characteristic of stress. This helps cut them down to size. Of course, some people object to the idea of contemplating the dukkha inherent in the mind's food on the grounds that this contemplation doesn't do justice to the many joys and satisfactions in life. The Buddha, however, never denies the existence of pleasure. He simply points out that if you focus on the allure of your food, you'll never be able to outgrow your eating addictions. It would be like asking an alcoholic to muse on the subtle good flavors of scotch and wine. Dukkha is inherent not only in the things on which we feed, but also in the very act of feeding. This is the focal point for the Buddha's teaching on dukkha as a noble truth. If we have to feed, we're a slave to our appetites, and we can trust ourselves to behave in honorable ways when the demands of these slave drivers aren't met. Inter-eating is not always a pretty thing. At the same time, as long as we need to feed, we're prey to any uncertainties in our food sources, at the mercy of any people or forces with power over them. If we can't do without them, we're chained to them. The mind isn't free to go places where there isn't any food, and as the Buddha guarantees, those are precisely the places, beyond our ordinary mental horizons, where the greatest happiness lies. The purpose of these two contemplations, on the stress inherent both in the mind's food and in the way it feeds, is to sensitize us to the limitations that we otherwise accept, sometimes blithely, always blindly, without thought. Once the realization finally hits home that they're not worth the price they entail, we lose all infatuation with our desire to feed, and unlike the body, the mind can reach a level of strength where it no longer needs to cling or take in sustenance, even from the path of practice. When it becomes strong enough in conviction, persistence, mindfulness, concentration, and discernment, it can open to a dimension, the deathless, where there is neither feeding nor being fed upon. That puts an end to the feeder, and there's no more suffering with regard to food. In other words, once we've fully penetrated the deathless, dukkha as a common characteristic is no longer an issue. Dukkha as a noble truth no longer exists. This is where you discover something unexpected. The mountains you've been trying to lift are all a byproduct of your feeding. When you stop feeding, no new mountains are formed. Although there may be some past karma mountains remaining around you, they'll eventually wear away, and no new ones will take their place. In the meantime, their weight is no longer a problem. Once you've finally stopped trying to lift them up, there's nothing to hold you down. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you for joining me this morning.